So the concern was that in the summertime, the van overheats. And then the statement after that complaint was that the customer removed the thermostat. And when you remove the thermostat, it actually takes the engine a lot longer to reach operating temperature because it's just flowing. When the thermostat is installed, it actually doesn't allow flow. So then the engine will get hot, the coolant in the engine will get hot, and then it will heat up the thermostat, it'll open, and then it'll switch places with the radiator, because that's really all that's going on. Water leaves the engine, goes into the radiator, fans cool it, and then once it heats up again, they just switch places. But when you don't have the thermostat, it just cycles. So then as it gets hot on the engine side, the coolant temperature slowly rises, but there's nothing to control it when it gets overheated. So he really didn't do himself a good service by taking it out. It just kind of prolonged. It gave him more lead time in the initial start. So say in the morning he starts it, he was able to go a further distance before it got hot. But at that point, once it's hot, it can't control it any further. So you need your thermostat. Don't take your thermostats out. And then his water pump leaked too. So that's just not allowing the flow to be efficient. It's leaking at the water pump, which it should be pushing the water around instead of spitting it out of the engine. So,
but it's different setup. So.
Yeah. I want my bolts. Yeah, he added a whole second cooling system because it was getting hot. So we removed all that. I found a bunch of leaks. Did a bunch of coolant repairs. But yeah, he's got all kinds of different hardware on here and stripped holes. So I just got to find a better bolt right here, and hopefully I can get this leak solved. That way he doesn't have to use that system. He could just use the van, what it had in the van. But he's put an upgraded radiator, but really more coolants in here now because it's a bigger one. So then it gets hotter. So the customers think by adding more capacity in the radiator, that's actually going to help it cool off, but it actually doesn't. It actually causes it to be hotter. So he added another fan, which is does what it does, I guess. He's got house repair wire parts in here and stuff, and I'm just like, oh boy. I replaced the water pump because it was leaking. I had to replace the thermostat assembly because the thermostat assemblies come with the thermostat integrated into it, but he ripped out the T-stat. So I had to sell him a new one. So put the thermostat in there, and then somehow he broke the control side of this EGR valve. The head broke off, but that also has coolant running through it, so it was leaking coolant, and it was kind of seeping into the intake manifold. So it's not leaking into the engine anymore. I'm just dealing with an external leak at the moment. So I got that solved, and I did the heater valve. I forgot. There's a valve over here. There's this valve and the two water pump and thermostat. Everything was leaking. One of the hoses was also discontinued, which sucks. So I had to kind of cut the leaky part of the hose out and get some length out of it, but that's perfect. So I'm happy with that. That's kind of the weird stuff. This is an older van. They just, it's their decision to stop producing parts for it as the brand, as Mercedes. So sometimes we got to get creative, which is fine. But I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep being more creative, figure out just a better bolt that's going to seal that piece up there. But then I can go drive it. And then we'll really know what's going on. I don't want to drive it with a leak. I don't like it. Let's pretend it got hot, right? I would temp drop these hoses. I would check before and after the thermostat to make sure it's cooling. I'll check the upper, lower hose, check the temperature difference, and there's a whole spec about what you should expect to see in temperature-wise, but if I don't see that split, that means the water's sitting too long in the radiator, not cooling off, which I already feel like this is not a good thing to have, this big cord radiator. But that's what we do. So I temp drop all of my cooling systems, and then I would verify that I have flow from the water pump circulating. But then, yeah, I just kind of go at it like that pragmatically, just temperature it and figure out where the restriction is. If it doesn't heat up, we're good. He can go home. He can take it back and be on his way, whatever because it is a house. It's got house stuff in it, so I'm pretty happy. I feel like it's going to be fine. I feel like there's no issues. This is not the first time I've had this diagnosis on this engine and platform, but the owner has this same van, and we went through a whole bunch of stuff, and that's what trained me to kind of be able to have some confidence in these diagnoses, just because we spent a lot of time with the owner's van. He has the same thing, essentially.